We're good? All right, I would like to call this January 10th, 2023 meeting of the City of Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy. Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Bowden. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And if y'all would like to join us, Councilmember Shealy will lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
If you'd like to please rise. Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for a new year. We ask that you bless this council, our city employees, and the people we serve. Lord, as we start this year with a renewed hope, we thank you for all that you've done for each of us and for the city of Charleston. Lord, let us release any bitterness or frustrations of the past year. Let us move forward, shine your light through us, and give us wisdom. May we make a difference for the city of Charleston for your glory and your purposes. We pray for your spirit to lead us in this new year. Guide our decisions, open doors that need to be opened, and close those that need to be shut. Lord, we thank you for a new opportunity to be all that you want us to be, for it's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you kindly, Councilmember Shealy. A great prayer to start the new year. I wish my good wishes to everyone for a happy, successful, prosperous 2023. I think we're going to have a good year. I do want to inform everyone, I know most of y'all have been here before, but in the most unlikely event that we would need to evacuate the building, we just have these two doors here, exit doors from the main chamber, and that one exit door over there. And if that were to occur, I'd ask not to use the elevator, but use the two stairs going down. And then we only got one stair going out the front door. So that's the way out, just in case the most unlikely event we were called to get out of the building. So we have a few presentations and recognitions tonight. First, I'd like to ask Councilmember Shade to join me up here to make a proclamation recognizing Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
Mr. Mayor,
And I don't know that Chief.
he's parking his car, so should be up in a few minutes.
Chief Reynolds is on his way up. We want to wait for him.
Yeah, we definitely want to.
So I will proceed with council's forbearance with number 2, which is the recognition of our 2022 Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Carl Brady. Please come forward and join me. And I have a little presentation for him commemorating his service over the last year. I know it's been said it might be the loneliest Mayor Pro Tem job in town, but there were some meetings that a number of meetings that Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Brady represented myself and the city of Charleston. And we want to thank you for your service, Mayor Pro Tem Brady. Thank you for a year well done. Would you like to make something more?
Sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared to, but I do want to thank Mayor Tecklenburg for letting me be Mayor Pro Tem this year. It's always good to get to go around the city and just kind of see the vibrancy, because I think a lot of us are kind of in our own districts and kind of in the day-to-day grind with that. But being able to go all over the city, you see the vibrancy. I got really good at cutting ribbons. That was pretty neat with those giant scissors. It's actually harder than you think. I offered to train the incoming Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Saccharin, on how to do that. But I did also want to thank Mayor Tecklenburg for entrusting me with the position when he had to be out sick and I had to run council as well. And thank the clerk's office for helping me get through that and make sure we had an orderly meeting. And thank you to all my colleagues for the honor as well. And look forward to working with Councilmember Saccharin.
So, I see Chief Reynolds is here, but we've finished this, theme on out. I'd like to ask Councilmember Jason Saccharine to join me up here. According to our current code, the one, position that needs council's consent each year is the appointment of the mayor pro tem. I hereby recommend to you that we elect Councilmember Saccharine to be mayor pro tem of the city of Charleston this year. I think he proved to us all his selfless act of when we went through our redistricting discussion and action this year, what a true servant and selfless servant he is to our city. And without further ado, could I ask for council a motion to approve Councilmember Saccharine as our mayor pro tem? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Let it record show it was unanimous. Welcome, Mayor Pro Tem Saccharine. Please come forward. We congratulate you. Thank you. And please make any remarks you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you for the honor. I hope to follow in Council Member Brady's footsteps. I'll be calling you often for tips. Mayor, try to keep her schedule packed as much as possible. And I look forward to the honor. So thank you very much.
So now I'd like to call on Chief Reynolds and Councilmember Shade to join me up here. We have a proclamation recognizing Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And I'm also joined by our Deputy Chiefs, Cheeto Walker and Dustin Thompson. Thank you all for being with us. If I may chair the proclamation, call on the chief, and then I'll call on Councilmember Shade to make a few remarks. Whereas January 9th, 2023 is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and whereas National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day was created by multiple organizations just a few years ago in 2015 to highlight the benefits law enforcement officers bring to our communities and show our appreciation for their service. Whereas the job of a law enforcement officer can be both challenging and dangerous. Across the country last year, 56 law enforcement officers were feloniously killed in the line of duty. 77 officers died as a result of duty-related accidents, and over 58,000 others were victims of some kind of assault. That equates to the death of one officer every 66 hours, and assault on an officer in this country every 9 minutes. Whereas, despite the challenges and dangers inherent in the job, law enforcement officers are committed to providing service of the highest quality to their communities by nurturing public trust, fostering community partnership to help prevent crime, and holding themselves and one another to the highest standards of performance and ethics. Whereas the citizens of Charleston are protected by the Charleston Police Department, which includes over 456 sworn officers and 117 civilian members committed to serving all people within the city of Charleston with respect, fairness, and compassion, protecting life and property of all people, preserving peace, order, and safety, vigorously enforcing local, state, and federal laws, defending the Constitution of the state of South Carolina and the United States of America in a fair and impartial manner, and serving as a deterrent to crime. And whereas the Charleston Police Department partners with several other federal, state, county, and local law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Secret Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, the United States Marshal Services, the United States Probation Office, the State Law Enforcement Division, SLED, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, South Carolina Department of Probation, College Charleston Department of Public Safety, the Citadel Department of Public Safety, the Medical University Department of Public Safety, Berkeley County Sheriff's Office, Charleston County Sheriff's Office, the North Charleston Police Department, Mount Pleasant, Isle of Palms, Sullivan's Island Police Departments. And whereas in support of the services of all law enforcement members, the citizens of Charleston are encouraged to show their appreciation by thanking them on this day and every day, as far as I'm concerned. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of the City Council and our citizens, do proclaim that this Monday, just passed yesterday and this week in the City of Charleston is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day and Week. Thank you.
Wow. I look around me and I see the amazing people of the Low Country, generations of people. I stand here in this amazing chamber. And I believe that we have a noble profession, that it's extremely important what we do, how we do it, why we do it, how we treat people with dignity and respect. I think our profession has come a long ways, but I know that we have a ways to go. And we have a lot of work to do. And I just, that's a real mouthful, all of our partners that you just mentioned, but if we could put them all in this room, we would have. We talked about trying to get more people here just to recognize all of our partners, because we can't do it without our partners. I just spoke with Chief Keel on my way in here this morning about this afternoon about some important issues in the port and just other things that are happening around the state. So I stand here on behalf of all of our partners, on behalf of the Charleston Police Department, the men and women who come here from all places. People like to be in Charleston, I'll tell you that. It makes recruiting easier, not easy, but easier to be in such a great jurisdiction with so many great people. And this type of support is not common everywhere else. And I can tell you, it helps us with our recruitment, with our retention, to attract the best. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for this city. I'm grateful for this proclamation, the support that we have from our council, from our mayor, from our community, from our troops, our command, from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to follow up. I literally stumbled upon that yesterday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I went back and looked at the history of this. And I was drafting this proclamation for submission, and I went through all of the local law enforcement agencies, and I think the chief has talked about this on countless of times. We cannot do this alone. It takes us here in council, the mayor's office, and our partners from the federal and the state and the local level. Our number one responsibility to our community is make sure our community is safe. And we do not thank these men and women who literally put their lives on the line every day for us. It's not just a property, it's our home and our safety and our sense of community and our sense of being safe. So to take a few moments out of our busy day, yesterday, students from Charleston Catholic School came to the police headquarters and handed out thank you notes to the chief. And I couldn't hear their voices, but they told the chief why they were happy and why they wanted to thank them for the job well done. It's just an important part of our community. We see the shootings in schools every day now, and unfortunately, a 6-year-old shot a teacher the other day. And so we know that our lives are always at risk, but we feel a level of safety and security. So for y'all, thank you all very much for the work that y'all do. Thank you all for putting up with me on these last comments, but this is something we just need to do on a yearly basis. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
right. So, then the last recognition is, or matter under this section is the city council committees that have been distributed to you all, actually a couple of times now over the last couple of weeks. We, have on the agenda tonight, my colleagues, under first readings, amendment to the rules as was brought up at our last city council meeting. And by virtue of our current rules, I am submitting this to you, my recommendations for these committees. I will pledge to you that when we pass, if we pass any change to the set of rules, I'll bring this back to you to get your confirmation on my recommendations. Yes, sir. All right, so we can move right along unless anybody's got a discussion with the approval of city council minutes from December 6th.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and approve. Any additions, deletions, suggestions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up already is our citizens participation period. Thank you, citizens, for coming and sharing with us. How many folks we got?
We have 17 people signed up to speak.
Let's do 90 seconds each.
All
And,
right, good.
The Madam Clerk will call out your name. Please, when you come forward, state your name and address clearly, and we'll allow some time for each of you to share with us. Madam
All right.
Clerk.
The time is 1.5 minutes. Anthony Bryant.
This is my physical address right here. Department of Treasury refused my IG request under the CARES Act and ARPA funding because there's no measurable measurement and there's no measurable outcomes for offering CARES Act money in low to moderate income communities. So this is what I got refused back as a communication on December 20th, decided by the Court of Appeals. Judge Niemeyer ruled December 22nd. I went into the library under 1611-625 trespassing. The same police officer came in and accosted an unhoused man, addicted and hungry. Okay, December 28th, I'm on my street, Cortland Avenue, and a man, I guess I'm unhoused as well, and I was trespassing in my own neighborhood. Okay, under Harlow versus Fitzgerald, 1982 is qualified immunity. So they didn't talk about qualified immunity when they gave their award to the federal and state government, but they could just use force on Black folk for about 100 years. That could happen to me over the holidays. Okay, this is my information. Lastly, House Bill 3049. House Bill 3049 and House Bill 3050, Law Enforcement Integrity Act was not mentioned. Okay, that means that now you can file a direct complaint to SLED. Before you had to get it from the police officer, the sheriff, local lawful jurisdiction, and the Attorney General's office. So now we can directly file our complaints directly. Thank you.
Lynn Coolj.
I'm a little nervous about that. Okay. All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Happy New Year. Happy 2023. My name is Lynn Coolj, and I live at Commodore Road, Youngs Island. I'm a member of KKBE downtown and actively involved in the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, along with thousands of other community members. Councilmember Greg, you represent my congregation. We hope that all of you have noticed tonight that we're feeling a little festive. We want to kick the new year off right, and we hope you do too. To help you with that, we spent a lot of time reflecting over what we think should be City Council's New Year's resolutions. We want to present those to you tonight and hope you'll seriously consider adopting them. Perhaps you've already made a list. Maybe you've all resolved to get more sleep in 2023. Instead of resolving to get more sleep, how about you make decisions that make it easier to sleep at night? Start with correcting your mistakes you've made and continue to make over Gadsden Creek. We have a list here, right here, of the resolutions if you need some help. Thank you for your time.
Alice Wakefield. Alice Wakefield.
Happy New Year. My name is Alice Wakefield, and I live at 137 Church Street and am actively involved in the Charleston Area Justice Ministry. Another New Year's resolution is to adopt for you is instead of resolving to work out, why don't you work out your relationship with your constituents? The community has shown up on the Gadsden Creek issue time and time again. When this issue first came up at Burke School, only the hall was packed. And they were packed with your constituents. And your constituents are against the filling in of Gadsden Creek. Here are 300 more postcards urging council to restore Gadsden Creek. And we'll bring those forward. Work out your relationship with your constituents by working on your courage to do the right thing. Thank you.
Zach Vasiti.
Zach Vasiti. 2011 was the last time the pedicab program was expanded, and it would be impossible for me to summarize all the changes to the city that have occurred in the last 12 years. But in an attempt to contextualize that, I will give you the fact that 13 new hotels have been built in our city. And I'm not talking about small Airbnbs, I'm talking about large places, the Hyatt House, the Saint, the Luttrell, the Spectator, a Holiday Inn, a Hilton Club, the Bennett, the Dewberry. These are large hotels that bring hundreds, if not thousands of people every single day to this city. And how are they going to get around? If Councilman Seekings would have it his way, they would park their cars, generating revenue for the city, and a local business could bring them in transit from one business to another. And people could experience this city in a truly unique way. I implore you, please, in February, release this bid that you set forth. We would have never started this had you not actually taken this action. We started our own business based on your creation of a bid. Support small business and run the bid that you promised to hold 1 year ago. Thank you so much.
Reese Kimsey.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Reese Kimsey, applicant with Middleburg Communities regarding the Southwick Drive rezoning. The requested 6 units per acre fits squarely within the city's comprehensive plan for this location of 4 to 8 units per acre. At the last meeting, council deferred our request and asked that we explore adding an affordable housing component to our project plan. As such, we come forward tonight with an amended plan that commits land and allowable density to Sea Island Habitat for Humanity at no cost. We commit to providing habitat with 6 units of allowable density and/or 1 acre of land within our plan. The area for habitat is in the northwest section of the site and already includes access via a road stub out from Stanwick Drive. We have spoken with Habitat for Humanity and they are supportive of this plan. The Sea Island Restore location is right around the corner at Southwick Drive, and we strongly support and align with their mission of bringing people together to build homes, community, and hope. We are a local developer and long-term community partner that is invested in the prosperity of Johns Island and Charleston as a whole. Thank you.
Alan McMahon.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name's Alan McMahon. I'm a development manager with the Beach Company, 320 Broad Street, Suite 600, Charleston, 29401. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm here tonight just to kind of tack on to the law enforcement appreciation sentiments that were echoed earlier. And as y'all are aware, there was a bad fire, I think, at our Stone Oaks project. I think y'all are all aware, the evening of November 30th. And as bad as it was, we lost 2 buildings. It could have been a lot worse. If it wasn't for the first responders, if it wasn't for the City of Charleston Fire Department and the St. John's Fire Department, there was, excuse me, 1 fireman injured. He had heat exhaustion. Thankfully, he was okay. We certainly recognize his sacrifice, and everybody's putting themselves in harm's way. So want to thank the city, thank the first responders, thank law enforcement. Detective Jackson was there that night, very helpful to us. And excuse me, Detective William Crockett since, and also Chief Jaluzada. What a great asset he is to the city. So thank you all. Thank the city. Thank the first responders.
Thank you, sir.
Stacy Bailey.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Bailey. I live at 39 Alberta Avenue on the Upper Peninsula. And first off, I want to thank the city and the police department, the SCDOT, and our elected officials and Charleston Moves for being so responsive and really great partners in helping us solve these safety concerns we have on the Upper Peninsula. We're experiencing really high, heavy traffic volumes, especially in the morning and the afternoon, in the areas around King and Rutledge, walking to and from school. And these cars are moving really fast. And I've had personally close calls with my really young children, and Councilmember Saccharin has been a great asset to assure me that we're working on it and bring some people together. So I wanted to come and speak to you to say that we're trying to focus our attention on Rutledge and Simmons, Rutledge and Moultrie, King and Moultrie, and King and Grove, as those are the 4 intersections around the 4 schools and home to hundreds of students and families in our area that walk there and bike there on a daily basis. We're requesting bulb outs or curb extensions at the 4 intersections, which should include rectangular rapid flashing beacons. These are improvements consistent with the citywide transportation plan from 2018 that was already approved. So we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary, and we don't need additional studies. The time to act is now. My kids are little and they're going to grow up going to these schools, and I really want to be able to walk and bike and enjoy the streets, whether the trees are butchered or not, so that we can enjoy our neighborhood. And so I appreciate all you do and for the town, and I hope that we'll be able to come to some funding for these improvements. Thank you.
Joseph Watson.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Watson. I stay at 62 America Street. We've been there for 64 years. So I've seen the changes within the East Side. I also see the need of the East Side. And I want to thank y'all for listening to me, because after our meeting last Wednesday, I was told by my councilman, no, 12 times, no, I don't want to hear you. That's not public service. That's not how you reach out your hot hand to help the needs of Charleston. So I hope you now reach out and realize what we're going through. The lady was killed by the accident. I know her because every morning I walk the peninsula. When I get around there, she's outside. And we would have a conversation about her losing her leg and that inner strength that she needed to be able to get beyond that. Just like the chief and the discussion I've had with him since then, and telling him what to pray and what I'm going to pray for him. Strengthening the person that they want to go on with life. But let's look at what was taken away from her. Over 6 years ago, we brought it to the department, Mr. Somerville, and had a meeting about the East Side and what we needed to see. Speed bumps, and especially right there on the corner, South and East Bay to put the lights up there because too many people crossing that street or coming to the post office are in danger. And between the lights on the corner of Chapel and Columbus, people race through trying to catch that
Time.
next light. But we got to do something. Will you apply yourself or do I take the fault for what happened because we didn't get him to realize the concerns of the community? Will you wait and we not be able to say, hey, let's get a survey of what all is going on there and now move forward? And there's other ways we can fund it, not just the ways they say in the newspaper. Thank you all for listening to me.
Alex Ziegler.
Hello, my name is Alex Ziegler. Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg and council members for allowing me to speak today. I'm just going to add to what Ms. Bailey was saying about the safety improvements on the Upper Peninsula for pedestrians. I think many of us agree that Charleston is a walking city. It's one of the reasons we love it. Our kids get to enjoy that when they get to walk to school, they get to ride their scooters to school, ride their bikes. And we are obviously interacting with the cars on the Upper Peninsula at a high level. So the odds of a catastrophic event, of an auto pedestrian collision, those are relatively high every day, Monday through Friday. The kids are going to school and people are going to work. So anything we can do, I believe, to decrease the odds for our children of having an injury, a catastrophic event, I think we should do. And I think these are reasonable improvements to these 4 intersections. And I urge the city to continue on the quest to get those installed and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Derry.
Good evening. I'm Peter Derry, 59 Simmons Street. Thank you for listening to us, Mayor Tecklenburg and City Council members. I'm here to speak on the pedestrian safety concerns for the Upper Peninsula. I'm the father of 2 young children that attend neighborhood schools and the husband of a public school elementary teacher at James Simmons Elementary. The increased traffic, speeding, and driving while texting have made the walk to and from our schools unsafe with way too many accidents and close calls for our children and parents on their walks to and from school. I implore you to find the funding for the to have the bulb outs and curb extensions installed at all should include the rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the intersections of Rutledge and Simmons, Rutledge and Moultrie, King and Moultrie, and King and Grove. The city's Department of Traffic and Transportation already approved the motion for the increased safety measures. The time is now to put the safety measures into place before there are any more children's lives put in jeopardy. Thank you. I appreciate your efforts of the city and law enforcement.
And we'll move to the list of speakers who signed up online. And if you're joining by telephone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. Tony Daniel.
Good afternoon, Mayor. We had a fire on Burning Tree Road last night. Guess what? EMS, fire trucks were impeded from getting down the highway. They couldn't make it to the end of the road. Some of them made it. You'll see the picture on Channel 5. At the road, Morris Appel says an open road that says dead end. They were in the parking lot at the school across the street, an entire block away from where the incident happened. And ironically enough, they sent you one of these silly letters saying, hey, we want to keep the roads closed. No legal basis, just we want to, because that's what we want. The pitchfork and the mobs. Now, the law says you can't close a road without a court order. You don't have one. The law says you have to have an order from city council. You don't have one. And then there's other components to the law that even if you get an order from city council, but currently none of those things apply. So now we've had my father have a stroke, impeded, a fire down the road where you have to have a staging area at the school 1.5 blocks away because they can't get to the area. I'm watching the police. There was a Sergeant Davidson riding through the school parking lot. I thought, man, something must be going on at the school. No, I'm trying to find my way to Inverness. This road's supposed to be open. I know it's supposed to be open. But the city closed it. Well, why won't they open it again? I don't know. Have you told them about the law? Of course I have. But I guess somehow or another, somebody's got more pull than I do. When is somebody going to finally explain to me why the roads haven't been open?
Time.
Thank you.
Hank Martin.
Happy New Year. My name is Hank Martin. I live at 6 Smith Street. I'm a member of First Scots Church, actively involved in the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, and I'd like to sing my comments tonight. Auld Lang Syne is translated for times long past. I hope you'll find changing these lyrics appropriate for preserving Gadsden wetlands. Should we destroy a tidal creek and harm communities' health? Should the city continue on a path creating space for wealth? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne. Charleston for all races now beyond Auld Lang Syne. And here's a hand, my trusty friends, don't fill the creek, it's time to serve a cup of kindness yet for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne. Charleston for all races
Time.
now beyond Auld Lang Syne. Should we destroy a tidal creek and harm communities' health? Should the city create?
Time.
Thank you, sir.
Mark Gould.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Happy New Year. My name is Mark Gould. I live at the intersection of Ashley Avenue and the Crosstown. I'm a member of the Church of the Holy Communion and actively involved with the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, which has 40 congregations in our organization. Council Member Saccharin, you are my council member. Perhaps you've resolved in 2023 to drink more water. How about also resolve to leave the water in the creek, in Gadsden Creek? We learned this week from the court case, and the city of West Edge have not been telling us the truth. Truth is, tidal flooding can more easily be solved without the filling in of the marsh. And West Edge's own documented evidence from the court showed that stormwater flooding will be made worse by West Edge. Leave the water where it is in the creek and restore the creek so that both the creek and the community can flourish. Thank you.
Margaret Ling.
Happy New Year. My name is Margaret Ling. I live at 4 Fields Place downtown. I'm a member of Circular Congregational Church and actively involved with the Charleston Area Justice Ministry, which is diverse in every way possible. Councilman Jason Saccharin, you are my council member. One New Year's resolution to adopt, instead of resolving to save money, since it is our community's money that we are working with, we ask that you spend it more wisely. As a council, we ask that you stop padding pockets of developers and acting like the city does not already have a plan to restore Gadsden Creek. We learned in the court case that a plan to restore the creek already existed. The city developed a plan to restore the creek years ago, so use the tax dollars wisely and ask your staff whose salaries we pay to come up with a plan. And separate from KJM, I wanted to thank council member for mentioning the trees situation. It is atrocious and absolutely unacceptable. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chris Jennings. Imam Edward Washington.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, Happy New Year. My name is Imam Washington, and I live at 64 Amherst Street, Charleston, South Carolina. I am a member of Masjid Al Jamia Rashid and actively involved in the Charleston Area Justice Ministry and organization filled with tenacious community members. Council member Robert Mitchell, you are my council member. A 2023 New Year's resolution that we suggest you adopt. Instead of resolving to get out of bed early in the morning, we ask that you resolve to get out of bed with West Edge. The city's relationship with West Edge is immoral and reeks of cronyism. Charleston, keep vowing to do better. Start here. Do right, do justice. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Rita Kazarskis.
Good evening. I'd like to make yet another request for the city of Charleston to stop issuing permits to the group who has been coming out to the Battery nearly every weekend to wave their flag of Dylann Roof. As a reminder, they broke a flagpole over the back of a young black man on videotape. Charleston Ordinance 25-44 regarding standards of issuance states that you can't get a permit from the city if you beat people up. If it's okay for a white man waving the flag of Dylann Roof to beat a black man in the park here in Charleston and continue to get permits from the police, then shame on Charleston, and please change the ordinance to say that. The ordinance also states there are to be no vehicles and only reasonably sized signs at permitted events. If that doesn't apply to the local white supremacists who wave an oversized flag on a truck either, please update that code too. For anyone listening who would like for the city of Charleston to quit turning a blind eye to accommodate the spread of white supremacy in our holy city, please call and leave a message for the mayor and city council at 843-579-6313. That is the public participation line, and it's 579-6313. Lastly, I encourage everyone listening to go back and watch the July 29, 2021 emergency meeting the mayor and council held to pass a new First Amendment ordinance where they explained the urgency was to exclude open carry at Charleston permitted events. A year and a half later, the city still is not identifying the specific area where open carry is prohibited, at least at the Battery, where the white supremacists continue to gather and get a permit to assemble nearly every weekend. Shame on Charleston.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Mr. Idris, did we miss you earlier?
Mohammed, you got here a little bit late. Would you like to be heard? Happy New Year to you as well. Did
And
anyone else sign up that hadn't been heard? All right. Thank you all for being with us this evening and for sharing and bringing a little festive air to it. And I'll have to admit to you, that's the first time council has been serenaded. So Happy New Year to all. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, we did receive some comments online and by telephone. All of the comments received online and by telephone were sent to the council members in full. This is just a summary. We received 17 comments online and 5 comments by phone that commented against the display of the Confederate flag at White Point Gardens and permits being issued to Flags of the South. Commenters stated there had been permit violations and that the flag was a symbol of hate, divisiveness, and oppression. We received 1 comment by telephone in defense of Flags of the South, and those were all the comments we received.
Thank you so much. All right. So moving on, our next, Councilmember Mitchell.
I would like to make a comment pertaining to what happened to the young lady on East Bay Street. And when I heard about it, and I heard someone say it was going to be a press conference out there, and I didn't know anything about it because no one ever contacted me. And even my good friend, the state representative, was there, but I didn't know anything about it. But I feel that if we're going to do something like that, then it's a tragedy in the district that we represent. I think we all should have gotten together from the state level to the county level to the local level, along with the neighborhood president in that particular area, to show more teeth, because they got to remember that even that particular street is state street. We still have to go to the street, to the state, to try to get permission to get these things done. The city of Charleston just cannot go and do it. So I want people to know that this is not the city of Charleston per se. It's the state that we have to go through. And from that point, I called the mayor and I put my suggestion in. A letter have already been issued to the state, have sent to the state, asking them to come and look at that particular area and see if we can do a marking there and so put a flashing light there to try to slow the traffic down, because in that area is pretty dark at night and traffic is really flowing on East Bay Street. If you ever drive down East Bay Street, it's a big thoroughfare, but this is a state street. So we have sent a letter into the state, but it's going up to the state to come back and do the investigation to see if it's warranted. We can keep fighting the same as King and Grove, King and Poinsett. I fought that for years, and the DOT keep tearing me down. I fought it for years right here on council. We sent letters back to the state, had to come down and look at it. They'd say it's not warranted, so they didn't do anything. So we're still trying again now. I spoke to Mr. Robbie Somerville pertaining to it, and we're still trying to put a walkway there coming from North Central Apartments, because you have senior citizens living there so they can cross the street, and by Poinsett and King Street also, because you have young people walking back and forth across the street. So we are working on that now as we speak. This was not just done yesterday, this was done years ago, but we are back at it again, trying again. And we still have to go through the state. And the state told me that time it wasn't warranted. So they are going back to the state again and try to get them to come back and do it for safety reasons. This is all about safetyness for the people that live in the city of Charleston, safetyness for the young people that live in the city of Charleston. So those letters have already been sent again, and having the state to come back and do it again and see if we can get them to do it and try to push those things forward. So I just want to put that issue out that these have been done since even the young lady who was tragically killed on East Bay Street. That have already been done. I have a copy of the letter in my pocket as we speak that went to the state. And also with the King Street also. So we are working on that. And I know Councilman Sacrum is working on it again. He is doing it again, the same thing I've done years and years ago, but we are still trying, and I have already still pushing that also, because that's a part of the district I represent, and we represent that same area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Waring.
Yeah, I want to thank Councilmember Mitchell for following up on that. But I'm showing my age, but in years past, they used to have a school crossing guard with those kids right there at Rivers Elementary. So the school district got away from that?
Councilmember Sacrum, I think, can address that.
I've become a foremost expert on school crossing guards. The school crossing guards are actually managed by the sheriff's office. They are employed with the sheriff's office. The school district requests them, but since COVID, there's been issues with pay, recruitment, and it's my understanding, based on our security folks with the school district, that, and I'm not sure if this is even public, but I've heard rumors that the sheriff's office is discontinuing the program at some point. So this is an issue for the school district that I think should take up, and you're right,
Is that something as a city we can address as opposed to a council by himself? I'm just telling you, my aunt used to be a school crossing guard at Highway 61 in Wallace Road, which was a major highway. And I can tell you, she's very good at what she does. She's passed on now, but that's something that we shouldn't allow to happen. When they wanted to take the school resource officers out of the school, didn't we, as a city, get engaged in that? I think the school crossing guards and these citizens that came before us are right. Thank you.
Councilmember Shade.
I think that what y'all hitting on is a great idea, that maybe we can refer this to Public Safety Committee and then see what the police can do about maybe work in conjunction with T&T Committee on that.
Okay. I'll make that referral to transportation, since I'm on the Public Safety Committee, since I'm on that, and we'll work with the Traffic and Transportation Department along with Public Safety.
So in just a moment on the agenda, we're going to talk about Upper Peninsula pedestrian safety, so we can talk about this a little more. But let me move through the agenda. First, the appointments. We have one appointment to the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission of Reverend Adam Shoemaker. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Now for council communications. In fact, next up, requested by Councilmember Sacrum, is to discuss the Upper Peninsula pedestrian safety and traffic concerns that we can discuss now. It was also brought up at our Committee on Traffic and Transportation, upon which we took action. And as Councilmember Mitchell mentioned, those requests have already been sent off to SCDOT by Robbie Somerville, our Director of Traffic and Transportation, both for the improvements of these 4 intersections, but also for the crosswalk on East Bay Street. And we did not request a study be done. We know what needs to be done, and we're requesting them to move forward with specific improvements as opposed to so it gets down to the funding to be able to pay for those things. If South Carolina DOT will agree to pay for them, then they can proceed at their own will. We will have to wait and get a response back for them. Anyway, I just thought I would mention that before you get going. Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to talk long on this, but I just want to say thank you to the residents that came out tonight. Thank you for the residents that continue to advocate. It's important. Thanks to Chairman Brady and the TNT, making sure that it's brought to the forefront. And thank you, Mayor, for making sure that we've got some formal next steps, which are getting support from Senator Kimson, Representative Gilliard, formal connection with the State Department of Transportation. Other than that, the request is very simple. It's those 4 intersections that we're really focused on. We've also given very specific recommendations. So staff has an idea of what that could cost potentially with some of those estimates. So our challenge now as a community, the residents that are here is trying to advocate and find funding to get those solutions done. But we know that those solutions and recommendations are consistent with the 2018 citywide study. So we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary. These are embedded within that study and they're consistent with that. And I just want to say thanks for folks coming tonight. Thanks, Chairman Brady. Those are my comments on this issue.
Councilmember Appel and then Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Saccharin, and for your efforts on this, and Councilman Mitchell for your efforts over the years on this. And we all know the complications the city of Charleston faces when we're talking about transportation infrastructure. The DOT tends to own most of the infrastructure. The county has all the money. We have all the constituents voicing this, the concerns, and we are oftentimes faced with the unfortunate position of having to explain to our constituents that, the destiny is not really in the city of Charleston's hands. That's unfortunate. The state of South Carolina needs to have structural reforms to make it easier for large municipalities to have more autonomy, authority, control of resources to act much more efficiently and effectively when it comes to these matters. But we're not solving that today, unfortunately. But I do think the city of Charleston has a unique opportunity for once to have its own dedicated funding stream for traffic safety improvement projects. The city currently does not have a dedicated revenue stream for these purposes. The half-cent sales tax that we all pay goes to Charleston County for them to decide how they want to spend that money. The gas tax, those kind of taxes go up to the state for the legislature to spread the wealth around the state and things of that nature. The city of Charleston, under Act 236, you may have heard about it, may have talked about it once or twice. City of Charleston, if we wanted to, could draw a line around the peninsula, say we're going to come up with a traffic safety fee. It's going to be a flat charge, $10, $15, $20, $30 on properties downtown. Could tack it onto a property tax bill. That goes into a fund that the city of Charleston maintains that we could put towards exactly this type of effort. Doesn't have to be citywide. We don't want it on James Island. Doesn't have to be on James Island. We can geographically tailor these fees in this specific program to where it makes sense and how it works. We can have a fee schedule where certain types of property owners pay a higher fee than other types of property owners. We have an enormous opportunity at our footsteps right now to get creative, to solve problems like this all over the city, and for once, start having money we can actually use to fund these infrastructure projects and maintain them over the years. So I really think that this is something we ought to look at. This new legislation presents a lot of unique opportunities for the city across a whole variety of different trouble areas that we've been dealing with for years. And I think this is really an opportunity for us to look at that and start funding these projects and not have to go begging the county and the state to solve problems down here in Charleston, which let's be frank. I mean, it hasn't worked all that great thus far, and it can certainly be improved. So with that, I'll close my remarks and hope we can make some progress on that issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr.
Ben
Mayor.
Gregory.
2 points. One, Councilmember Saccharin, have we also considered that strip on King Street, between Sumter and Line Street, where that accident occurred, that young girl was killed crossing the street, that part of this plan as well? And I know we went out there and met with officials with the state and county and members of the T&T committee. Has there been any movement at all on improving that stretch? I can't remember whose district that's in. Councilmember Mitchell's district or both of y'all's? Yeah, that's right, because the streets divide y'all right down the middle. But there's been no movement on any of that, has there? I would just suggest that we include that as part of the overall plan
Yeah,
as well.
I think they were saying that they would get back with us. That's about it. But there's nothing transpired about it at all. And they came out. I think he was out there. They came out and looked at it and did their assessment. And that's about it. And that's where it's still stalled right there with the state.
I think Robbie's coming up to the microphone.
Yes, I just wanted to add, the last I heard about it, they were doing an audit. They were doing a road safety audit from Line Street, I believe up to Sumter Street. So they are looking at that area. I haven't received anything back from the DOT, but I know that they did go out and look at it.
Thanks for updating us, but
And
we'll follow up with them on it.
The second point, Mayor, is to echo what Councilmember Appel was talking about, but I would not limit that proposal, Councilmember Appel, to the peninsula. We've been working on an improvement around Old Town Road and Sam Rittenberg, Donahue Street, Charlestown Estates, Amberley, for 2 or 3 years. And the funding for that, which is our money, by the way, this is actually the city's money that the county controls through DOT's approval. We keep on getting that project pushed back and was supposed to start in 2022 and nothing happened. Was to start in 2023. Haven't seen any movement with that. But if we don't have a mechanism of controlling these types of improvements, it's a safety issue. It's a downright flat safety issue. Councilmember Waring has heard me too many times complain about the sidewalk issues that we get dumped on at Public Works Committee. But when it comes to these types of issues, the state ignores us. I mean, let's just be honest with it. The state ignores us on this. The county's beholden to the state, and we're left, as you said, telling our constituents, sorry, but maybe we get our state elected officials more engaged in this process. But if we can find a mechanism to address this, and we can control those types of improvements, that's all part of urban planning anyhow, is roads and highways and streets. And we're stuck. We held up the improvements on Sumar Street because we're waiting for this project to be approved. We got it approved, and now we haven't seen the first truck out there turning up any type of improvement. So whatever we can do to follow that up, Councilmember Pell, you got my support on that.
Councilmember Gregory.
We continue to talk about 236, and I think it's time for us to take some action on 236. And this might be a good way for us to go. And it looks like it's a public safety issue. So to me, public safety should start drafting some legislation to incorporate the provisions of 236, and let's test the water. Number 2, Miss McCrae, the late Miss McCrae, was our crossing guard, and it worked. It worked. So I think in addition to all that we're proposing, we need to go to what we know works. We need to go to the chairman of the school board. I mean, safety should be their #1 priority for our children. And if it requires something from the mayor in this body to say to the chairman, it's time to do something about public safety for our children, then Mayor, I think we need to do that. Because we could wait, we've been waiting for the state and the county on Gimble Road to get a traffic light. It took 5 years, folks, to get a traffic light for safety for our children and for our constituents. So to me, I think it's time for us to start looking at and taking action. And I really think we need to confront the school board with this safety issue, Mayor. I really do. And if they're defunding guards, but to keep our children safe, then I think it's time for us to take it on as a city, because those children are also our constituents. And I think that we need to protect them. So I think it's time for us to stop talking and take action, Mayor, and move forward for the safety of our children. And the way we start is go to the chairman of the school board, okay, and let her know that there is a concern here that she needs to address.
Back to Councilmember Sacklin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the record, I want to make sure that my comments were clear. It's my understanding that the school crossing guards are managed by the sheriff's department. School district is involved because of the schools, but that sheriff's department manages that. So I just want to make sure that for the record, we're clear on that. The other thing is I'm encouraged by the conversation from my colleagues regarding this. I would ask pleasure of my fellow council members for our next TNT meeting to potentially add to that agenda for discussion, because I haven't certainly had the opportunity to hear about this since being on council, about taking back some of our streets from the state and owning and managing that. I know some bristle at that, but I'm just saying as a new council member, I'm completely ignorant to the fees, the costs, and I'd love to hear more about it. So if it's something that's a moot point and council and doesn't go anywhere past TNT, I am fine with that, but I just want to learn more about it and see if that's a possibility, because I think what we're talking about is funding. We're also talking about autonomy, being able to control some of our situations. So with the pleasure of chair and vice chair, I'd love to add that to the next TNT.
Terrific. Back to Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Appel, you're right about 236. Support you whenever we get that done. I mean, I'm with you. But this was funded before COVID, and it was cut. So the funding is there. What they did was they cut whoever did it was the sheriff's office. They cut essential workers. And whoever made that decision needs to be, the transparency on that needs to come forward. I actually believe if the people who voted to do that were highlighted, I think they'll see the wisdom in putting those essential workers back on the payroll. This is one of the lowest cost budget items they would have, and I'll tell you why. These aren't even full-time employees. These people come for a couple hours in the morning and a couple hours in the afternoon. That's it. They're part-time. They don't even have benefits. They don't have retirement. They don't have medical. They don't have disability. They don't have sick leave and annual leave. And those are the people they cut. Now, right now, we don't know who did that. But one thing about it, we can find that out, can't we? And then I think we can get a measure on county council who approves what the sheriff's budget, sheriff's office budget. There are too many pieces here that we can reassemble and hopefully get that decision by the sheriff's office reversed. I think you're right on that, Councilman Sacklin. So we can use 236 to fund some other things in the city, but those dollars have already been appropriated, and somebody came along and said, we're going to cut it. And they were able to do that, and none of the parents knew about it, none of the mayors knew about it, none of the council members know about it. I think that one can be reversed. So let's find out how that got reversed, and then let's see if we can get the funding put back.
Well, thank you. We'll drill down on what's going on. Our SRO leadership at the police department has good relations with the sheriff department. We'll figure out what's going on with that and come back to you. I agree. Long term, we need the city of Charleston needs some funding source to be able to make everyday roadway improvements that we can't fund through the general fund. And maybe you're right. That's an opportunity. I will add the caveat for those who might be listening that for DOT streets, which are 80% of the streets in the city are actually South Carolina Department of Transportation streets. Even if we had money to do the bulb out, we still need their permission. Likely for reasonable things, they would give us that permission. But if it's their street, we still have to get the legal encroachment permit or whatever in order to put those improvements in, even if we were paying for them. Or they'll come back to us and immediately say, oh, well, you can have the street if you want to take it. And so where that's going to go over time is more and more city streets, more and more of the inventory of streets will become city streets. But anyway, that's a long-term issue that you get into when you go down this road. Councilmember Seekings, did you want to add something to that?
No, I mean, I think for Councilmember Sacramen's purposes, and I'm sorry that I missed the last TNT meeting. Before we have this conversation again, let's just take a look and see if you've seen the checkerboard, particularly on the peninsula, of streets and who owns them and who doesn't. At least let's have that in our hands when we take this up again, so we can let the people who live in those neighborhoods actually know who's got what. And one of the ironies of all of it is, even if we take the streets back, the DOT still has hooks on us as to what we can do on them under certain circumstances. So it's a complicated white hot mess. We've been through this before. It's exhausting in some ways because it's so obvious that we need to do something. We did this in 2018. We spent an enormous amount of time and money on having a citywide transportation plan in place. And we identified, among other things, these intersections. So we need to do it, but we need to at least let you all know who live in those neighborhoods what our challenges are. And they're not just as simple as getting us together in the city and agreeing with you that we need to make our streets safer. We need to commit some other people to not only allow funding for it, but to allow us to actually do the work. And anecdotally, an example of that is around the corner from where I live, at the corner of Bennett and Rutledge. You know where that is, by the park. It's just a very little intersection, but Rutledge, south of Calhoun, is heavily traveled too. We wanted to put a stop sign there. The one achievement I've had as a city council member is after 7 years, we got a stop sign at the corner of Bennett and Rutledge. That will be on my epitaph. That will be on my gravestone. He got this stop sign. But the way we did it is we had to take the road back. We had to go through a whole bunch of machinations to literally put up a stop sign. And I mean, not to bring up some bad stuff, but you might recall the number of horrible incidents that happened at that intersection before we got it. So we're with you, right? I mean, we all are around this table, but we need to get all our ducks in a row. So before the next TNT meeting, we'll get you, I've got the map, I'll send it to you, and it shows you which road, and it's amazing. Some streets, a block between two north-south streets may be owned east-west, the next one isn't. There's no rhyme or reason to it. If you showed it to a kindergarten class, they would look, this is ridiculous. So we'll keep moving forward on this for sure, and get some progress. I do think, by the way, Mr. Mayor, at the next level up at the county through chats, there's safety money available up there, and they do some smaller projects, and we need to sort of get that on the list because the policy committee's been pretty favorable at addressing and allocating monies to safety projects. And these are ones that I think we probably could talk to Mr. Mitchum about and get that in line.
Great. So Councilmember Sacrament, thank you for bringing this up. Good discussion, y'all.
I know I've been recognized twice, but I think there's one fact point I think we all would be very interested in. As you know, the Honorable Judge Arthur McFarland was present. He just left, but technology is wonderful. He, chief judge for what, 30 years, 32 years or whatever for the city of Charleston. The city used to run the school crossing program, actually through CPD. Okay, so we've got another little area to dig into. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So next up is our council committee report. First is similar topic, Committee on Traffic and Transportation. Councilmember Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Traffic and Transportation met Tuesday, January 3rd at 4 p.m. We discussed the topic that we were just discussing, the pedestrian safety on the Upper Peninsula, and took action and did provide recommendations, including that the committee would send a letter in support for the tax money to be allocated towards these projects that we've discussed earlier. Next, we took up at Councilmember Shahed's request to talk about Sumar Street and the 18-wheeler overnight parking there. There was action taken to direct that to staff and have livability begin communicating with the property owners because many of them are parking on private property, as well as to look at potentially changing some of our zoning ordinances to prohibit overnight parking of 18-wheelers, especially near neighborhoods, rather than the commercial corridors as well. So that was that. We deferred the update on the bike share program, and we'll get that at the next meeting. Much to Councilmember Gregg's delight, we approved the traffic calming on Purcell Lane unanimously. And then we received an update on two projects very close to me and in my district. The Sanders Road sidewalk update, that will be going out to bid soon. So that was some great progress there. And the state DOT did sign off on the raised crosswalk that will connect the sidewalk from Sanders Road to the school district sidewalk at C. Williams Elementary. So we'll have, I think it's very topical with what we've been talking about with pedestrian safety, especially for students. That's something we've actively been working on as well. And then the Sanders Road at Bees Ferry traffic signal. If it took you 5, it took me 3 years to get that done. And very excited that that will be going operational soon. It will flash for 72 hours once they get the wiring and everything complete, and then the light will become operational. If you've ever tried to make that the left from Sanders onto Bees Ferry, or if you're coming from Verdier Lane over at the Avenues Apartments, it's pretty much you're taking your life in your own hands to try and get across Bees Ferry. So that light will bring much needed relief and safety to that intersection as well. And I would move that my report be adopted and that we approve as a council the traffic calming on Purcell Lane to Councilmember Gregg's delight.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilmember Shade.
Mayor, if I could just real quickly, I took some more pictures of Sumar Street. These spools of cable on Sumar Street property. I don't know who decided that was okay to do. But then across the street are those 18-wheelers that are still parked there. This is the ongoing problem and trying to revitalize what's actually allowing this to transpire. I just pass that out to you for information and appreciate the committee taking this up and looking forward to a resolution of this.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Gregory.
I mean, I've been following this, it's been all over the news. They can't be ticketed and towed.
So the Sumar Street property is property of the city of Charleston, and we've got signs up there. And so it's trespassing, and the signs are huge to do that. But companies do what I'm showing you in that very first picture, that they dump a portable on-demand storage facility on there. They put these cable, these rolls of cable and that heavy machinery out there, and it just sits there. And I call, complain, and here they are. And then across the street, it was supposed to be checking on the private property because across the street was an old Captain D's, and unless they complain, unless the private property owner complains, nothing happens. So it is an ongoing issue of getting livability out there to look at it and to get those things moved off of there. This is an ongoing problem.
So I have asked Mr. Kronsberg to install some chains at the main driveways, so hopefully that will deter. We do have the right to give a ticket, but we're going to put some chains up as well. Yep. Yes, sir. Councilmember Bowden.
I'm having a similar issue in my district on the West Ashley Circle, which was built and hasn't quite been built out yet. But there was a trailer there for weeks, just dropped off, no truck. It happens all the time. They're parked in the street often. And so some of us who take that road as a way of bypassing some traffic on Bees Ferry sometimes have to be extremely vigilant that one of those things isn't sticking in the road. as we're driving by. So there certainly is an enforcement problem. And I would love, I would love if we could fix that. I mean, it's a big city to be constantly trying to enforce these things. So maybe the problem is that we're not fining enough, or we don't have graduated fines to really hit people if they're, repeat offenders. So I think that's a good point, and something that I would like to see maybe traffic and transportation take up in the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Bowden. On his recommendation, Robbie asked me if we could post some signs on the West Ashley Circle for no overnight parking, similar to what we did at Low Battery. And so I think those signs are on order, or they will be soon. We'll be able to post them and write tickets and enforce a little better once we get those posted. So thank you for that. Yes, sir. All right. So next up is Committee on Special Facilities. Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee on Special Facilities met last Thursday, January 5th. We had a thorough update from our new Special Facilities Director, Romaine Hayward. She let us know that visitation was outstanding in 2022 for our special facilities. Every one of our facilities had a boost in attendance. The Dock Street Theater had about 5,000 more people for a total of about 35,000. And those are just visitors touring the facility. That doesn't include people coming to watch a show. As far as the Dock Street Theater, in the early summer months, there will be an upgrade to the stage lighting and the sound system. Charleston stage is doing very, very well right now. And in 2023, they're actually going to move in a month earlier to add some shows because they are doing so well. Spoleto had 3 or 4 performances per day in the Dock Street Theater this year during their 17-day festival, and they plan to do that again in 2023. Moja also had some events in the Dock Street Theater. Attendance was low because it was around that time that Hurricane Ian was coming through, so they had some attendance problems there. There were several weddings that actually took place in the Dock Street Theater, and some actual weddings that were supposed to take place back during the pandemic. The people got married, but they came back and celebrated in the Dock Street Theater, so we had a few of those. The Library Society uses the Dock Street Theater for 2 weeks each year, and they plan to continue to do that. And we're hoping to have a new operations director for the Dock Street Theater by mid-February. And the Maritime Center had some pipes freeze a couple of weeks ago. Those repairs are being done. We had a total of 363 registered boats in 2022. And Netflix Outer Banks show and HBO's Righteous Gemstones used the Maritime Center for filming this past year, and Land's End Catalog also used it for some of their marketing. So we completed a license agreement with Harbor Tours. Several tall ships have used the Maritime Center in the past year, and it's still a top location for transient boaters because of the views of the harbor, of course, and our low costs. But I won't go into detail, but there was several maintenance items that she listed, and the Maritime Center is also set to aid the aquarium with any renovations that they need help with. So the Old Exchange had 87,000 visitors, which is an increase of about 4,000. They had the annual reading of the Declaration of Independence on the front steps this past year, and we discussed some maintenance items and other issues there. The Old Slave Mart Museum had visitation of 89,000, which was an increase of over 5,000. We had a big boost in attendance over the Christmas holidays, which was incredible. A lot of people coming and visiting our facilities. And there's currently a study being done by the police department to see how we can make that facility maybe a little safer for our employees and visitors as well. So we discussed the possibility, actually Mayor Tecklenburg brought this up, but there was a possibility of a joint combination ticket with the International African American Museum as well. So the Angel Oak had 421,000 visitors, and there's been a big boost to our gift shop there. Gift shop sales have done very, very well over the last year. They've been doing some group lectures to give some education about the history of the tree, and they're continuing to work with the Preservation Trust on some projects such as parking improvements, signage, and of course, the expansion of the park, and working together with the Preservation Trust also to see how we may be able to offset some of those costs. So there was nothing really voted on. It was for information only, but that's the conclusion of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Good report. Thank you, sir. Any questions for Councilmember Shealy? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward to our license committee, which we really already got a report from during Ways and Means. Anything to add? Comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, our Committee on Ways and Means. As amended. All right, any discussion?
With recusals.
Same recusals will apply.
And my name, so.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So next up is bills for second reading. I think we have 7 of those tonight for second reading. Any comments or questions about items 1 through 7? Bills for second reading. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third
Second.
reading and ratification. Any comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, bills up for first reading. We've got
1 and 2.
looks like a zoning for Fenwick Hills Corporation. Is there any presentation from staff? I think this matter came before us at a public hearing at our last meeting. Do I hear a motion from the floor?
Motion so we can get it started.
The
So
motion-
moved.
Motion is to approve it?
Yes.
Yes. Do we have a second?
I'll second that also.
Okay. Any discussion? Councilmember Brady?
Yes, I know we have the applicant here tonight. And one of the things we had talked about at the last meeting was on the SR1 conservation zoning allowing for the density, provided that there was the affordability component. I was hoping the applicant might be able to address why they didn't want to go with the SR1 zoning, if that would be all right.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yes, again,
Please state your name again.
yes, Reese Kimsey with Middleburg Communities on behalf of the applicant. We went back and looked at the SR kind of bonus density zone affordable. All in all, for financial reasons, it doesn't make the deal pencil for us to move forward. But what we did work on for addressing that affordability was working with the Sea Island Habitat for Humanity and donating density for 6 units for them at no cost to them to work, and obviously work with them as they're at the corner of Southwick. So we have 6 units of density under the DR6 zoning that we would have, and we would give that to them at no cost. And it's at the north, which I had a way to show this on the site plan, but it's on the northwestern side and has a street stub out to it, and we'll give them full easements for sewer, water access, everything to that at no cost to the Sea Island Habitat for Humanity. Talk to them, they're in full support of that as well.
Thank you for that accommodation. Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Shade.
If we get someone from planning just to sort of give us a overview of what is the difference between what they can develop out there versus what this ordinance allows them to do.
So the zone change that they're requesting will actually divide the property and include some area that will be reserved as conservation area. That's in the predominantly the low-lying areas, but not exclusively. And then the other area will allow for the slightly higher density than the current SR1 that's on the site. Currently, it's a uniform zoning across the site. This zone change will change that and allow, and as I said, some of it will be the conservation, some of it will be, and I apologize, I'm blanking on the new designation, but will allow for that slightly higher density. I think under the current zoning, the site would have a density potentially for 120. As Councilman Brady has indicated, it does have the ability to do the conservation zoning, which would allow them to do additional affordable units at no additional density impact. But obviously there's a lot of constraints that go with using the conservation zoning and a lot of upfront work that is required in order to be able to achieve that, which is the difference here. They can get the zone change and do their engineering and all of that they'll need to do through stormwater. Under the conservation, they need to have a lot of that work already done in advance of bringing that package forward.
All right. Anybody else have a question or want to be heard? Hearing none, all in favor of item number,
Mr. Mayor, one thing, I wanted to compliment Councilman Brady on working on that affordability, because that was not an issue until he raised the issue.
that's right.
And I want to commend the developer for listening and working the numbers to the point to where, and allying with Habitat for Humanity, because we've seen a lot of developments that have come through here that didn't have that type of sensibility. So thank you, Councilman Brady, and thanks to the developer. And even though people from Habitat for Humanity in here, I want to thank the Sea Island Habitat for Humanity.
That's right.
I want to thank them as well. Thank you.
The Charleston chapter, I might add, is a very good chapter, but the Sea Island chapter of Habitat is excellent. And they've had trouble finding property. So you're all making some property available to them, particularly at no charge, is really a nice thing. So thank you for doing that. Yeah. Councilmember
Yes,
Mitchell.
Mr. Mayor, I want to echo that also because when Habitat is building homes, that's really the reasonablest home you can find.
Yeah.
When Habitat is building it. When I used to be on the board of Habitat, you know, I can tell you a lot of people purchased Habitat homes and couldn't afford to purchase any home anywhere else. So Habitat is doing a good job once they can find land. Property is now more expensive, so it's not like it used to be, but it's still doing a good job making affordable housing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilmember Appel.
I was just gonna quickly say, I applaud Councilman Brady, for the same reason Councilman Waring suggested, and commend the developer for reaching out to Habitat for Humanity. I would just point out to my colleagues that we're just approving a zoning change. None of this stuff with Habitat for Humanity is baked into any of this. I'd feel a lot more comfortable, and I don't distrust y'all at all. I'm just saying I'd feel a lot more comfortable prior to giving this second and third reading. We have an MOU, we have an agreement, maybe someone from Habitat for Humanity comes here, just so we're all sure that the quid and we just to make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Thanks.
And Mr.
That sound like a reasonable request that y'all ink something up with Habitat? Appreciate it. Yes, sir. That'd be great. All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Brady.
Yep, I just wanted under the rules to explain my vote. And I appreciate the developers, especially coming back with the, agreement with Habitat, and look forward to reviewing the MOU. But, my constituents have reached out to me, concerned about the density there. And so, I need to be their voice and unfortunately have to vote against that. But understand, my colleagues moving forward and what that implies. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Mayor, so when we took the vote, we had someone raise their hand to speak. Can we take that again? Because I'm not sure that everyone voted.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to speak that needed to speak on that item?
I do have one other point.
Councilmember Waring.
If I could ask Michelle Johnson to come to the microphone, please. No, Councilman Appel's a point. I can't tell you how valid it is. There's a development at the end of Ashleyville, the Oaks. We made some accommodations for clustering on the SR1. And the developer said that they would create, was it 4 or 6 units? 5 affordable units.
Yes.
That development is fully built out. And the developer over there hadn't built, how many? Zero. That's right, it's Crescent. I mean, it's not a secret. Crescent Homes. They came right in this chamber and agreed to something very similar to where they're gonna build affordable housing. As a matter of fact, in that community, basically.
Absolutely.
Maryville, Ashleyville. Now, I don't know how we circle back on that, but they have built, what, is it 44 homes over there? And I mean, not entry level. They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
They're gorgeous. Yeah.
But you talk about the quintessential bait and switch. That's what they did.
Gotcha.
So you are spot on, Councilmember Appel, and I know you all will follow up and get the writing done right. And I'll be, once we see that, now affordable lady is and legal satisfied with, I don't have any trouble voting for it. But again, still, thank you, Councilman Brady.
Thank you. All right, so let's retake the vote on that. This is still for M1. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
And just for the record, the two nays were Councilmember Brady and Councilmember Parker.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you much. All right, now for number 2, we have an amendment to the chapter 2 of the code of the city of Charleston regarding our standing committees. And that's been presented to y'all. Any discussion?
I'll move for approval.
Okay. We got a motion to approve. Any discussion? Councilmember Rappel.
Marks, but I'd like to give the proponents of the ordinance an opportunity to speak first if they'd like, but I'm happy to go now. I just wanted to, I'll go ahead. Okay, so I think this is an important discussion. I appreciate this measure being brought forward. I oppose this ordinance, this concept, and I want to explain to my colleagues why. My opposition is aimed at 2 reasons. First, I think that we need to, as a council, defend the executive branch of the city of Charleston as an institution, an executive branch that has served the city of Charleston well for generations across multiple mayorships. And number 2, I think that this ordinance moves us in a direction of making city council more political. And I'm concerned that by doing this, we are going to become distracted by power struggles, factionalism, and infighting. And I want to be clear, my remarks and my opposition, it's not about defending any particular slate of committee assignments. It's not about defending the mayor. The mayor doesn't need me to defend him. This is more about a structural concern about how our government is set up. The city of Charleston, just like every major city, needs a strong executive branch. The city of Charleston council members, we are part-time, essentially. We all have other jobs, things of that nature. The mayor is the one who wakes up every day, comes into an office, and runs the city. In order for the city to be led forward into the future, it needs a mayor empowered to execute its agenda, his or her agenda. Councilmember Gregory is absolutely right that all power resides in council. There's no question about that. That's the law. But our predecessors, the city council years ago, wisely delegated that power to appoint committees and a host of other powers to the mayor. And that's why the city of Charleston has a mayor council form of government. The phrase strong mayor is actually not a legal term. It's sort of a common parlance, but we have a mayor council form of government where the mayor of the city of Charleston runs the city on a day-to-day basis, and city council retains important oversight of that authority, but not, day-to-day management. The mayor is elected every 4 years with substantial voter turnout, media coverage, money put into getting the message out. And the mayor, once elected, should have the opportunity and the authority to execute his agenda. And it defies logic, I must say, to force a mayor to have committees led by political opponents. It will frustrate the ability for the mayor to run the city. It'll delay progress. It'll cause more infighting and things of that nature. Thank God the city of Charleston council seats are nonpartisan. None of us are Democrats. None of us are Republicans. That's fantastic. But to suggest that we are a non-political body is not accurate in my view. And I don't think this proposal takes politics out of the equation. It simply moves politics from the mayor's office to the floor of council. And I'm just concerned about that, what will entail, especially after what we've seen up in Washington, D.C. in the House of Representatives over the past couple of weeks or so. This would be an unprecedented radical departure from the way local governments are run in this region. Charleston County, their chair, appoints committee chairs and committees. The town of Mount Pleasant and the city of North Charleston, the mayor appoints councils and committeeships in both of those jurisdictions. And the town of Mount Pleasant is a council form of government, also known as a weak form of government. One of the few powers that Mayor Haney has above and beyond his council member colleagues is the ability to appoint committee chairs and committee assignments. So even in a weak form, that's a power held by the executive. So if we were to do this in reverse course on decades and decades of process over here, it would be a radical structural departure from not just how we do business, but it would be a unique feature in the area. Listen, I've got my opinions on certain council committee chairs. I think some do a great job. I think some do less than a great job. I'm not going to put anybody personally on blast tonight. I don't think that was cool in December. But we don't need to go there. We don't need to get personal. It's not about my opinion or position. We all have the ability, no matter who's the chair of what, to bring an idea forward, get it on an agenda, do the work, move the ball forward. And whether or not we pass this ordinance or not won't change that whatsoever. So I appreciate this discussion. I oppose this ordinance. Let's approve the slate that's been put forward. I understand there's been some changes already that have solved at least one of the big issues I think that may have caused some of this heartburn in the beginning. And let's get to work. Let's focus on the important issues: traffic safety management fee we talked about earlier, Act 236, flooding, all these other issues. Let's not spend this year trying to radically change the form of government in the city of Charleston. And with that, I appreciate everybody's listening to me, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Waring.
I respect my colleague's opinion. But to say politics is devoid from the current process, it's not. You're right. It's not. And the reality is, and I support the strong mayor form of government, but the mayor does not manage council. He doesn't manage us. And I've said this before. All of the employees, 1,700 plus employees who work for the city of Charleston, that strong executive gets to manage them. And that's what people vote him in office for. He is not voted in office to manage city council as he does employees. We should have say-so in the standing committees that we serve upon. You, on a number of occasions, have said that we are, and I will ask my colleagues for a little bit of time on this issue. I do not want to be gavel closed on this. You, Councilmember Appel, and you have been right in saying so. We are legislators and we should legislate. The executive branch in no form of government manages the legislative branch. As a matter of fact, the example you brought at the previous meeting on this, I agree with you. And I agree with you today that let's look at what took place in Washington. Some of us don't agree with it. I found it tremendously interesting to watch. I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning looking at this, okay? But I'll tell you what, it was transparent and it was front for all to see. But you know what? President Biden didn't call and say, hey, y'all stop that. I'm gonna appoint the Speaker of the House. I'm gonna appoint the chairman of Ways and Means. I'm gonna appoint the chairperson of the Appropriations Committee or Armed Services Committee. He has absolutely nothing to say with that. Your example about county council, I think it's taken out of context. It's a good example. They are legislators, okay? And how does that chairperson of county council get there? It's the members of council who vote for the chairperson. And you're right, that chairperson, a legislator, appoints the chairperson of the committees. That's all we're talking about here. And even in all due respect to the mayor's position, the proposal is he recommends with the advice and consent of council. Now, one of the things that this ordinance lacks, and I was going to add this to it, is, and we could tweak it because we need input from every council member. Those legislatures, in the case of the national government, have steering committees. And it's the steering committees that set the various committees in the House and the same thing in the General Assembly, okay? Obviously, county council, the manner in which we would appoint ourselves should not be done on the floor. For example, Councilmember Parker said at the last meeting, and I never thought about it this way, certain committees from a regional standpoint in the city isn't represented from the standpoint of Daniel Island, Keenhoy, the Peninsula, the James Island, Johns Island, et cetera. And one of the ones she brought up, but a light turned on when she said that, the real estate committee. The real estate committee has 5 people on it. The mayor who lives West Ashley, I live West Ashley, Councilmember Appel, you live West Ashley, and Councilmember Shea lives West Ashley. From a demographic or regional standpoint, we can do better. Okay. If we had 6 members on the committee and the chairperson could not vote for a tie, in most cases, Robert Rules of Order allows for that. In some cases, we've suspended that rule. But if we had 6 members on each standing committee, it will enable us from the point that Councilmember Parker brought up to represent the area from a regional standpoint, I think better. But the reality is the mayor should not use that power to remove experience because you disagree or agree with a council member, a member of council. That is not a power that the mayor, because he's a part of the executive branch, should have over legislators. And that's what you're advocating. I agree with your opinion. I respect your opinion. I just disagree with it. We are not to be puppets when it comes to service to our constituents. Collectively, we serve the exact same people the mayor does. And to say that his agenda, we all run separately. Well, I don't run on a team, okay? When I run for re-election, I'm not on a team. I put myself before the people, most of us do, and we ask to serve them. And when those people vote for us, they are actually thinking we truly are their voice being carried forward. Now, when that voice is muffled one way or the other, because of an executive decision, we shouldn't remain quiet about that. That's what this wonderful floor of democracy is about. We should not, when experience gets moved, and that experience has an idea that potentially could lead to a tax deduction for every citizen, we shouldn't look the other way, and that should be the talk of the water cooler. We should do something about it. And that's what this does. And to say that we are going to have an uncivilized method of going about establishing committees, one thing we have amongst all of us here is we respect one another. We don't speak about one another in a profane way. There are times when some of us have had tragedies in our families, illness, etc. And what do? We reach out as allies. We reach out as friends. That's not the decorum that we walk in this historic chamber that the chief of police kind of alluded to. He not kind of alluded to, that he alluded to. We respect this chamber. When I I normally park south of Broad on Meeting. And every time I walk facing this chamber, this building, I look at the flag on top and I feel like I'm actually walking into history when I sit down in this chair. So to say that when it comes to take any standing committee, the idea that Councilmember Gray came up with and said that about the differential in property taxes or millage rates between the people in Berkeley County, the citizens in Berkeley County, and the citizens of Charleston in the same municipality paying a different millage rate. Councilmember Gray, I didn't know that until you brought that up. But I'm a firm believer if that's something that should have been talked about and will be in the budget process going forward. But so when we cut off from exchanging ideas and thoughts and facts with one another, I think the citizens lose. It's not a personal loss. Our ability to represent those who sent us here to speak for them. We had a colleague in Columbia, a city council person who they had a measure up there to switch from the weak mayor to the strong mayor. She called me and asked me what was my opinion on it. I told her I believe in the strong mayor form of government. And she said, well, what happens, and this was a lady on council for a while up there in Columbia. What happens if you and the mayor has a disagreement and he takes reprisals? I said, what kind of reprisals? Well, all of a sudden, parks don't get approved in your district and ditches don't get cleaned in your districts. I said, why would you remain quiet about that? I said, you ought to bring that to the floor, council. If your mayor does that to you, and let everybody know, because of whatever disagreement, the mayor is not cleaning ditches in your neighborhood because he's hurting your constituents. They're not putting any new parks or new equipment in your neighborhood. Why would you stay quiet about that? So it is the portion that I think some feel that this strong mayor form of government has to have some ruling factor over council members. That is incorrect. In the General Assembly, the governor does not appoint the Speaker of the House. The governor doesn't appoint the chairman of Ways and Means Committee. None of those committees, all of that are decided by the legislators. Back to your point earlier in your service on council. I understand, but I did ask my colleagues for additional time. This is not any detraction from the mayor. What it's going to do, as a result of council members' input, we're going to get to serve on committees we'd like. We're going to get to hopefully serve on areas that we wish we could have got on, that for whatever reason, one choice kept us off. That would end with our collective thoughts. I respect the additional time, Mr. Mayor. I respect my colleagues for allowing me to speak on this a little bit clearly, but we are legislators and we should have say so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my council.
Just in response to Councilman Appel, hopefully you all have an agenda. We all were voted by our constituents on specific things they want us to address. So we all walk in with an agenda, no different than the mayor, okay? And we all have to do the same thing the mayor has to do. You got to get 7 votes to get it through. I don't care what your agenda is, okay? The bottom line is getting the 7 votes. And I must add that our mayor has been pretty effective in that regard in terms of getting his agenda through. And most of us have been. But I think that we need to be clear. I'm not here to carry out the mayor's agenda. I have one of my own that my constituents has put on me to do. And some take years to get it done. And that's the only comment I have here. We all have an agenda. Hopefully we do. And not just the mayor. I'm not here to carry out anybody's agenda. Okay, I'm here to serve the people. And if the mayor or anybody on this council puts something forward that I agree with, I will vote accordingly. But if I don't, regardless of their agenda, I'm voting no. So let's just be clear here. We all have agendas. And because he's the mayor, he still has to get 7 votes. All of us. So let's just be clear here. All power lies in council. That's why we have 7 votes.
Anyone else like to be heard? Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just since we're on it, I guess I just want to understand, again, you rolled the last year's committees into this year. So that's why I will support this ordinance, because I don't really understand the reasoning. I mean, we have some council members that are on 9 committees, some are on 4, some are on 7. I understand you said, you try to spread it out. Councilmember Waring brought up my point regarding, public. I mean, of course, I knew this coming onto council. This was like, what do you have to do to get onto committees, do this, that, or the other? I think I'm the perfect example, whether it's the mayor choosing or this council. I'm probably not going to get to go where I want to go, and that's fine. But I will again point out, when we have 4 individuals living in West Ashley and 1 on the peninsula on Public Works, we are not spreading that out. Okay. Everyone's fighting for flooding help, all those dollars. We have an engineer on council who is not on Public Works and Utilities. I certainly see and understand why this ordinance is important. I do just wish I understand how we're going to get there as a council, how we're going to decide those committees. But I certainly don't, I agree with you. I mean, I see the problem here with a mayor appointing committees. And I think, I can be the perfect example of that. So thank you.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't here for the last council meeting, so I had the opportunity to watch it last night via YouTube, and it was kind of enlightening, because it seems like the issue just came out of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but it's relatively contemporary. Past couple of weeks, maybe a month, right, Keith? Right. Okay. So I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of my fellow council members to understand the nuances of the argument. I do see both concerns regarding the autonomy the mayor should have, giving a strong mayor, but also looking at some of the committee assignments. Some of them don't make sense. And I'm just going to share, because, full transparency, the mayor had reached out to me 2 years ago and asked me to step off of a committee, and I did. It was not a transactional discussion. I didn't ask you, what are you going to do for me? My fear is that if we start to do what we are suggesting, that those transactional conversations are going to increase, and it's going to create factions and alliances. We saw it with redistricting, and I'm seeing it now. And I will flat out say, the reason that this got solved was behind the scenes. A couple council members got together to solve that issue. That's good. There's conversations. I guess when I look at the current ordinance as it's written, and again, I see both sides, I would encourage us to go back and figure out the how, because there is no how. What is advised and consent? I don't know what that means. Quite frankly, that's where my concern is the ambiguity in the current policy. If we can get back to a place where there is some criteria, to Councilwoman Parker's suggestions, is it geography? Is it a work experience? Do we look at Councilman Gregg's experience and say, he's got an engineering background, science background, that's weighted, and he should be on Public Works. Whereas we look at Councilman Appel's experience, he definitely should be on the real estate, but I'm not sure he should be on it. So I guess what I'm saying is we need to agree on the criteria. So when we come to council to have this discussion, we're basing it on criteria, and it's not this arbitrary, I will say, political alliance, or maybe I pissed you off one day and it's going to be a personal grudge match against me. I don't want it to get to that. So I think if we are going to move forward with this type of ordinance, we need to establish the criteria that we're all agreeing on, that the mayor picks that slate, we have that conversation in council. So it's more clear. Right now, it's very vague, and I would just ask and encourage us to either send it back to Rules Committee or give it to council to think about making it a little more clear. So that's where my head is on this particular ordinance.
Councilmember Gregg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You all mentioned my engineering background. One of the big rules in engineering is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And to me, this feels like something that isn't broken. I have been on this council for less than a year now. The mayor appointed me to a number of different committees, and he's been in this job for much longer than I have. So I trusted his judgment to put me on committees where I could learn from more senior members of council. I think as you're starting a new job, and honestly, this isn't a new job, you get a chance to learn and get more experience so you can get better at it. And as we get better at this job, I would trust that we're going to have more responsibilities on different committees. So I would just say that I think the system has worked well so far, at least for me, as the most junior member of council. And I think that that we will, I'm concerned that if we bring this to the whole body, you've mentioned making sausage on the floor. We're going to have a lot of sausage making on the floor, Mr. Waring. So that's my biggest concern about it. I think it's worked well so far, and I'm inclined to vote against this.
Councilmember Shea.
Mayor, before I make my comments, I want to know your position on this. I want to hear your position on this before I make my comments.
Well, I'll be glad to share with you, council member and my colleagues, and I did at our last meeting as well, shared how I felt about it. First of all, I shared that it's a real balancing act to come up with this list. There are not enough slots for everybody to have everything that they'd love to do. And some of the code of all this, was written before I walked in the door. The number of positions on a given committee, we can change those things. Like we added a position, I think, to the Public Works Committee to increase membership on that committee. Beyond that, I mean, it's the same number per committee as far as I remember as when I got elected 7 years ago. I don't know when council decided there'd be 5 members on this and 4 members on that. But anyway, if you go by the parameters of the code that was in place, it's a real balancing act to do this. And I sincerely tried, as new members come along, to gauge their interests and their background. Yeah, we have an engineer that didn't get on the Public Works Committee, but it don't flood on Daniel Island. They got it, they figured it. They have some other issues over there to deal with. So, many factors go into that. I just wanted to share that. I will vote no on the matter. I shared last time, and I'll repeat it. We all work for the citizens of Charleston, and part of my job as mayor is to enforce the code and the ordinances that we as a body pass. And so I fully respect this council, whatever y'all decide, we decide. I'm a member of council as well. I'm going to do my damnedest to put that in place and make that happen. That's what I'll do. But respectfully, and I don't know that I could have said it better than Councilmember Pell, because sometimes when you think about 50 years and 100 years from now, that longer view of how things work and how they should work, I do believe that the basic system we have in place is a good one. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for tweaking committees. We can form a new committee. We can change the numbers on a committee. That's all, part of the process of responding to the needs of our city. But if you look at the long term of the city as a whole, as an administration of trying to be in sync to accomplish the goals before us, I think, and the strong mayor form of government, I think having the mayor being able to make these appointments is a good one. If council decides differently, man, I'm all for doing whatever y'all decide. I respect and honor that. I'm going to respectfully vote no on this matter.
If I can then comment, and Councilman Waring and Councilman Gregory, thank you all for bringing this to our attention and having this discussion about this. There's one thing a little bit different about our form of government that Councilman Waring was making some comparisons to. The person sitting as the presiding officer of this legislative chamber is the mayor. He is the Speaker of the House. And it's just an odd situation. It's a little bit different in that we have, and there are other governments, local governments that have a president of council. And our government's not set up that way. He's a member of council and he's the presiding officer of council. He's a Speaker of the House, and essentially is what his role is. Is that when you go back and look at some of the old statutes and ordinances of the city of Charleston, the mayor was not only the mayor and a member of council, he was also the judge. I mean, that was it. He's in charge of the judiciary as a judiciary of one. He presided over criminal cases. That changed over time, and the Human Affairs Reconciliation Commission has made it very clear about having that separation of power on the judiciary, and we need to make some more improvements on that. I think that the discussion about this is bringing out some really important issues that Councilmember Parker brought out, Councilmember Waring and Gregory brought out about the assignments of all of this. And I don't want this to sound like a personal attack on anybody, and if I do that, I apologize from the very beginning, but there have been issues on how the appointments have been made on this committee. I mean, that's just a problem. And over time, it appears that sometimes it looks like it's been retaliatory, and I think that's the remedy that we're trying to address. I know that the form of government in Mount Pleasant and the form of government in Columbia is a little bit of a mess, and I don't mean that in a derogatory form, but I know that Daniel Island got annexed into the city of Charleston because the developers and the owners of that property liked the form of government that we had over here, because they knew that the development of Daniel Island was so critically important that having, maybe it was all about Joe Raleigh at the time, but it made sure that it was going to be developed in a proper manner, and it has. And Daniel Island is a wonderful example of how it developed properly. The infighting that we see in, we brought up Columbia, Councilmember Waring, and and I know some of the other members of city council on there, past members of city council, I've had discussions with them, somewhat chaotic in a certain form as well. It is critically important, I think, that we have and maintain this idea of a strong mayor form of government. And you're right, Councilman Waring, the mayor has control over the employees. We don't. And that sort of sets to the mayor's agenda, at the very least, as to what goes on. What I don't want to see happening is that we go down, and lawyers use this term, the slippery slope. You put something into motion, and all of a sudden it starts to snowball into something else. So the problem, Councilmember Greg, is that there is some aspect of this being broken. And that's why Councilmember Waring and Gregory brought this up, because there have been instances in which we need to address this thing and fix it. I'm just kind of, and I voted for that this go and have an ordinance brought to our attention in January to see where this is going to lead us. And I've had some conversations with our legal counsel about how this is going to pan out. But I've been thinking about this. I've been somewhat hesitant about voting to approve this amendment. Because the issues that have been brought up are very critical issues that have been stated more eloquently than I can repeat them, as to how the committee composition is made, who's on the committee, how it's being represented, and this idea that sometimes politics get involved in it. And it's very clear that politics do get involved in some of the appointments. All that being said, we've got to support, at the end of the day, the institution of this government. And I walk into this chamber, like you do, Councilman Waring, realizing the historical context that we sit in. But behind you is the role of people who have led the city over 350 years. And we've done pretty good. You know, it's been doing pretty good in the past 150 years. So at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go ahead and oppose this amendment only because I think it's critically important as my role as a council member to protect the institution of the government as it exists right now. Recognizing very clearly the problems that have been brought up on how this is being handled in the past. And it's still some of the issues that we need to be addressing on fixing this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Bowden.
I sort of subscribe to what Councilmember Gregg said. I don't think this process is broken, and that's ultimately the reason that I'm going to change what I said last meeting, that I would support this change. Maybe if there was a different mayor and there were more problems with this process, I'd be more inclined to check the mayor's power, but that just hasn't been the case here. I'm also, well, okay, relax. I think that there's also, I'm uncomfortable with some of the words that have been thrown around in this debate. So regionalism has been introduced into this. I know that I'm elected by people who live in outer West Ashley. I trust myself to factor in the concerns of people who live on Johns Island, who live on James Island, who live on Daniel Island. We have meetings all the time that Councilmember Parker attends for Public Works and has the opportunity to speak, and we hear out her concerns. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think the chair of each and every committee would allow an interested member to come and speak to that committee and have those concerns heard. So I ultimately what changed my mind about this is watching, and that may be the difference we have. I watched that process in the House of Representatives, and if I talk about it too much, I'm going to say words that get me fined. But ultimately, that was resolved through a backroom deal, and that backroom deal may result in the United States House of Representatives not meeting our financial obligations as a country. And that, I'm not saying we're anywhere close to that. I don't actually think the House of Representatives or our branches of government are a great analogy for city government for exactly the reason that Councilmember Shade raised, that the mayor's a member of city council, essentially. He votes with the legislature, which is a significant difference. But has worked out well. I think it actually adds to the collegiality that you talked about. I think we're all sort of equals, and we have the opportunity to engage with the mayor about the process. I personally have been pretty happy with my committee assignments, despite my profession not applying particularly well to public works. But this is working for me. It's working for my constituents. I am just a little bit worried about the issues we create by making changes now, and so I'm going to vote against this.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard?
Question on the ordinance, because what really prompted this rules committee had to do with submission of legislation and how that should be submitted for review.
Had to do with what? I'm sorry.
The way we got here, okay, started with how legislation should be presented to council, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't see anything in here that talks about that.
We worked that out.
Oh, you did?
Yes, sir.
It's not going to be in the ordinance or anything? It's just going to be
We had a
procedural?
rule change regarding that, and I thought at this point, we basically resolved it. Councilmember Brady.
I think the clerk's getting ready to make the same point that I am.
So the rules of council, they're going to be coming forward at the January 24th meeting. So the change that legal has made, that change, that's going to be coming forward at our next meeting, and that will be up for consideration then.
So why do we separate it out though? All of it's the rules of council, including what we're discussing now, right?
Right,
So
you can, we can change any word of it that y'all
I'm just
agree
trying,
upon.
I'm just trying to understand. That's all,
Right.
because it's my, what prompted all of this,
Right.
okay, had to do with how we're gonna
And the
deal
Rules
with it.
Committee has a recommendation, I guess, coming forward.
Okay, that's okay.
Council member.
I believe this came separately because, and forgive me, I wasn't at that particular meeting, so correct me if I'm wrong. It was asked that it come back to council rather than going back through the rules committee.
And even though they kind of came up together, they were separate issues. I mean, they're related, but it wasn't in the same breath. Councilmember Seeking.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna be brief. I mean, I think much like many of the things we do here, including what we did tonight by electing Councilmember Saccharin as the mayor pro tem on advice and consent is a good idea. And, having some input into what committees we serve on to serve our interests, to make sure that we put forward our best foot as a city collectively, as city council, is a good idea. And I can tell you just from experience of this week, if you fear that we're going to descend into anarchy on the floor and have a big brawl over it, Councilmember Brady and I had lovely conversations this week about many things in the city, including committee assignments. And we worked through an issue it's the grill out there, right? I mean, my chairmanship of TNT, we worked through it, back through the mayor's office. He's put a slate forward, and with his assignments, we then have advice and consent on that. I mean, that's all this amendment does is give us a backdoor say on all this. And I think actually we're going to miss an opportunity for us to communicate better if we don't do this. During the time between the end of the year and the beginning of the year, talk about committees, get through it. And I suspect that it will not be a brawl, that it will actually end up being a benefit to all of us to talk to each other. So I'm going to vote for it. I don't think it's a radical change of governance style or governance at all. It's just a manner of which the mayor listens to us. He knows what our interests are. He knows what our differences are. And he knows some of the things that get our craw a little bit. All right. I mean, that's not been any secret. And we can work through that. But I think having a backstop and having us give some input into our and all of ours collective wisdom on the committees we sit on is a good thing. I don't think it's a negative. I don't think it's a radical change of governance. I think it's just a piece of input. And I suspect if we do this, and we'll see how the vote goes, that you will collectively think it was a good thing that we all had this, we could have a conversation with each other through the mayor's office, give some input. And, his job is not only to lead, it's to listen. And I suspect that through this process, it will go to his office and the list will be more representative of our interests. I think seniority has something to do with this. Experience has something to do with this. Geography clearly has something to do with this. I mean, some committees are more heavily weighted to some areas of the city than others. That's just a fact. And it will all work out. So I heard Councilmember Gregg say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I agree with that. But I think here, we're not fixing anything. We're giving each of us an opportunity of input into a system that can be better. So I'm going to vote for it. I would encourage all of you to think of it in that vein, that this is a chance for us to communicate, to be the best that we can be, to put forward the best leadership we can in places through the advice of the mayor and the consent of the council. That's not a radical governing concept. It's the concept of which our entire country is basically founded. And I did, by the way, stay up to 1 o'clock the other night. Actually, I watched till 1 o'clock. I probably stayed up till about 6. Because if you could sleep after that, you've got the magic, okay? But there was some good stuff and some bad stuff about it. And with what we're doing here, but in the end, the input part of it, I think is important to me, and I hope it will be important to y'all. And I do believe that this is an opportunity for us to say that we can work together to be the best we can be. And I would encourage a yes vote.
Well, if I may add, I think honestly, your example is a case in point of it's not broke, why fix it? In fact, when I sent out this list to all of you, I asked if you had any, suggestions or recommended changes to please reach out to me. And the one person that did was a letter I got from Councilmember Seekings. And yes, I was listening. I took your letter. I spoke with the other party that would be impacted by your request. And as he mentioned, well, they worked it out and they let me know back and we changed it. So, you know, it's working. Councilmember Waring and then Parker.
Thank you. I'm gonna vote against this, and I'll tell you why. It's not finished. When I spoke to our council about it, one of the main points that Councilmember Sackman came up with was very valid, the where to and how. It's not finished. The piece about the mere fact that Councilwoman Parker can feel legitimately that some of the areas she's gonna potentially ask for, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to remember what you said, that she's not gonna get. There's something wrong with that, Councilmember Gray. If we're on all these various standing committees, again, that we comprise, and we feel like we want to try to get on one, I think we can make that case to, well, we should be able to make the case to you, but that we should be able to make that case to our colleagues on council. Why would any one of us on council feel like, man, I'd like to be on community development? And if I ask for that, I'm not going to get on there. I didn't think that atmosphere exists, but if any one of us feel that way, if one of us feel that way, we should all be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
It is not finished from the standpoint of, I do feel that we can have 6 members on the committee, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, you would be on part of the 6. And the idea about having an odd number is try to get passage. So you have 3 to 2, one way or the other. Now with 6, you're subject to have a tie vote. But I don't believe the chairperson, should you have 6, should be able to vote to create a tie. Now, Councilman Brady knows that's part of Robert Rules of Order. In some cases, some bodies suspend that rule. I think on certainly standing committees, the chairperson should not be able to create a tie. They certainly can vote up or down, but not to create a tie. That would solve that issue, and it would keep us from having a quorum of council on every standing committee. So we won't have the number 7. Potentially, you all may have some better ideas. Back to the whys and hows of it is you can have a steering committee of council where our desires are submitted and communicated to the mayor. Well, who's supposed to chair that? I think it would be the chairman of Ways and Means, because that's a standing committee that meets every 2 weeks. Okay. My point is there's a methodology, and Councilmember Seekings is spot on when he says it improves the situation. Okay. Somehow you all looking at it as cutting somebody's knees from underneath them. That's not the case. The system needs to be improved. And you're right, Councilmember Shade. You said at one time the mayor used to sit as a judge. That was changed for the better, by the way. You're right. Can you imagine that now? So,
Councilmember, with all due respect, Councilmember Gregg has requested to leave in just a few minutes. Could we wrap up and take a vote on this, please?
I'm gonna move to defer.
Okay. And very briefly, Councilmember Parker, did you want to weigh in one more time?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I guess not, we're done, but I do think, I mean, Councilmember Seekings, you made it, obviously that's a great point. I mean, I think it can do nothing but improve the conversation. And I truly think that sitting here saying, you know, yes, this room should be nonpartisan. I have witnessed firsthand, this is not a nonpartisan room at times. So to think that coming in with certain values and viewpoints that may be different than the mayor's, absolutely that affects committees and where you go and what you're working on. Second thing, I understand what you're saying about creating alliances and doing, you know, what did you call it? Transactions. You know, it's going to become transactional. Again, I think if we focus on geography, you know, that's why I pinpointed that. But transactional, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. That's where the communication aspect comes in. You might have things in your, you know, I think affordable housing is a perfect example. James Island, you know, let's be honest, is that a top priority for James Island? Well, but are we do we have the money? Do we have the money? You know, can we, again, do we have the money? Do we have, yes, okay, it's okay. I'm just saying there are things that certain districts struggle with. Councilmember Greg doesn't deal with flooding. Okay, he doesn't deal with flooding. Great. He doesn't care about public works. I have multi-jurisdictional components on James Island that I struggle with daily as far as flooding. Just putting that out there. So those are the type of things that I do think it's okay to, in some ways, be transactional with these committees. And that's where the conversation around this table comes in. It's not necessarily political. You know, one person isn't deciding, it's what works for you, you know, so things like that. So I do think it just brings up a good discussion point. Thank you.
I'd like to have a roll call vote on this matter, Madam Clerk. Oh, we have a motion to defer? Oh, okay, we have a motion to defer. Did we get a second on that? Okay, who wants to defer? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? No.
So roll call vote on the deferral. All right, Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Shealy. Yes, sir.
Defer takes precedence.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Bowden. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker.
Aye.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Nay.
All right, the motion passes.
The item is deferred. Our next meeting is going to be on January 24th, starting at 5. We will take a break at 6 o'clock for the State of the City address. And then there'll be a city council workshop on the 26th at 4 o'clock. Any other business to come before us tonight?
I have a very quick question. As a
Councilmember
presiding
Seeking.
officer, now that we've deferred this under our rules, you've assigned committees. Are those now in effect? They're in effect.
They were in effect earlier this evening,
Okay,
actually.
okay. Just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're all clear on.
That's
where
right.
that- Thank
And
you.
I said if we pass a motion that would alter that, then we would honor that. Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Order, please.
I just want to make sure I voted to not defer it because we didn't have a discussion on where who's taking it up. It's going deferring and going where.
That's a very good point. I think.
That's why I
I would
voted no.
respectfully
We should have
say
a steering committee.
it's got to go back to the Rules Committee, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, who's on the rules committee?
All right. Any other business to
Mr.
come
President.
before us, Councilmember?
Everybody's on the rules committee?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We stand adjourned. Thank you all. Happy New Year.